Yesterday, I talked about the promotion of Jim Lee at DC Comics. Now he's the president, and why none of that really made any sense. Today, I'm going to talk about a different type of promotion and why it makes all the sense in the world. Heather Antos, who basically is the harbinger of death for any comic book publisher or Kickstarter campaign that she actually works on, is being promoted at IDW, and I say job well done. Once you've killed off the comic book publishing platform, you might as well get promoted during the end times as IDW falls apart in front of our very eyes. IDW Publishing's most profitable division for the past 20 plus years has been its licensed comics, and it just has promoted its Star Trek editor Heather Antos to run the entire division under the new title of Group Editor Licensing. Antos will continue to oversee the Star Trek comics, as well as adding Sonic the Hedgehog and other books to her portfolio. Man, I feel so bad for Sonic the Hedgehog fans. Those are like some of the only fans that are happy with IDW comic books at the moment. Obviously, TMNT fans outside of the Lost Road and stuff are absolutely just sick with what IDW has done to their favorite team. Star Trek fans, you've seen what Heather Antos is capable of. And now Sonic the Hedgehog fans, you're going to know it all too well as well. If you've been reading the Star Trek comic books, like the group editor, she's senior editor of Star Trek comics or whatever Heather Antos was. If you go through those comic books, just make a checklist and see how many typos that you find in that shit because she actually can't edit. And if you know anything about Star Trek, specifically like Deep Space Nine, they're doing a lot of Deep Space Nine comic books, see how many things don't make sense or line up with the actual TV show because she clearly doesn't know anything about Star Trek canon either. Only in comic books can someone this incompetent just continue to get promoted up, even though every place that she goes to and everything she's associated with basically dies on the vine as soon as she shows up. It's the craziest thing in the world. And it's not like a hidden secret that Heather Antos is a really bad editor. She's one of the few people that CB Cebulski like publicly fired at Marvel. Most of the time they try to keep it quiet. They try to get you a new job or whatever. But Heather Antos, he was like, no, you are the worst editor at Marvel, and he let her go for that reason. And if you talk to people behind the scenes that are like part of that side or whatever, she continues to get work just because someone made videos about her like 6 years ago, pointing out what a fake geek girl she was or whatever Richard called her. And there's that stupid milkshake thing, one of the dumbest controversies I've ever seen in comic books. So she continues to get employed despite everyone in the entire industry knowing she's not good at her job. And everything that she touches absolutely turns to stone. Thank you, Richard. As far as I'm concerned, you're the reason that this shit keeps happening. If it wasn't for diversity in comics or comics with your boy Zach now, Heather Antos wouldn't have a job in comic books. She'd still be out like doing fucking cryptocurrency or online gaming, betting. I don't know what the fuck she was doing. Once she got let go from Marvel, she went and found better pastures for about 6 months and realized she couldn't do that either. So she failed her way back to comic books and now is failing her way up here. She already destroyed Valiant Comics. Valiant Comics was my favorite publisher in the world, bar none, not even close. Heather Antos shows up. Now, there was a change of leadership as well. They had sold the company to DMG Entertainment. Dinesh wasn't in charge anymore. But as soon as she shows up, none of the characters make any sense anymore. Oh, this doesn't feel like Bloodshot anymore. Oh, that's Exo Man of War? None of this lines up with any of the characters' history. Oh, we're going to debut a new Livewire series, a character that I really like. Heather Antos is involved with it. She brings Vita Ayala on board, and it's not Livewire. It's just another character because she's a dumbass and doesn't know anything about comic books or their history and the fact that people actually like the characters and they're invested in the characters, not the fucking title on the comic book. The Bloodshot thing was the worst. Once you had, who was it? Jeff Lemire lead Bloodshot. They announced a new series because you got the Vin Diesel movie coming out. It's supposed to be an ongoing series. They announced the first writer. He leaves in 3 issues. New writers come in. They reset the story on the 4th issue. They stick around, I believe, for 3 more. And then a 3rd writer came in and reset the story again and ended it in 8 issues. And IDW is synonymous with licensed comic books. I know they want to be something besides that. But as long as their name is IDW, they're going to be known for licensed comic books. And by putting Heather Antos in charge of this, they're basically telling us they don't care about that anymore. And all their efforts are going to be in like creator-owned stuff. But they don't really have any creators to turn to yet. They certainly don't have any hit series. So they're actually going to sink the entire ship. The only things that may save their bacon in these hard times and handed over to Heather Antos. And this is what the Popverse had to say. This article was hilarious. Antos originally joined IDW in April 2021, headhunted from Valiant to oversee the company's licensed Star Wars and Marvel All Ages titles. Antos is well acquainted for this position, having been involved in Marvel Comics' successful Star Wars comics line launch in 2015, working along with then Star Wars editor Jordan D. White. At the same time, during her 3-year stint with Marvel, she also was involved in relationship with licensors such as Disney and WWE. Headhunted. She was headhunted from Valiant. Valiant Comics sales completely died. They couldn't move a series for like 2 years. They couldn't pay the rent for their building in New York, and they basically fired everyone except for like 6 people. She was fucking fired because she was incompetent and she drove their fans away. And then like, oh, she's uniquely qualified to do licensed work. IDW had a contract with Marvel and Star Wars to do all ages Star Wars and Marvel comic books. When Heather Antos arrived at IDW, they put her on the Star Wars comics brand because she's got experience or whatever, and they immediately lost both licenses. I would say that's not a ringing endorsement from CB Cebulski or whoever's in charge at Lucasfilm, that once you brought in the person that was editing some of those comics back in the day at Marvel, you brought him on board, put him on those comic books, they immediately pulled the license and took it over to Dark Horse. Do you know how bad you have to be fired by CB Cebulski, like publicly? And then, yes, of course, Jordan White, the guy in charge of X-Men, is the guy that brought her into the industry. I guess they met at a con or something. And it's like, yeah, just go edit a crowdfunding comic book and I'll hire you as an editor. You got to get a credit underneath your belt. Otherwise, it doesn't seem like you're qualified for the job. And ever since then, Heather Antos has proved on a weekly basis, basically every single comic book that's published with her name on it, that she has been qualified for the job. Just typos galore, doesn't fit in any canon, no type of actual discernible storytelling involved in the comic books. Something that the editor is supposed to be doing. Certainly something that the senior editor is supposed to know a thing or two about, and certainly something that the group editor involved in anything is supposed to know something about. IDW has basically given up on licensed comic books, even though that's the only thing that they can currently sell as comic books. I guess if you want to go out in a blaze of glory, promoting Heather Antos is a way to do it. You know, I'm on board. Give it a slow clap. I get to make a video about it. And I get to blame Diversity in Comics, Richard, your boy Zach, whatever you want to call him, for all of this shit blowing up in their faces. Now, there are some competent people at IDW that have been brought on board, specifically from DC Comics, that you would think one of them would be a better choice for the group editor of the most important comic books that IDW are producing, but they're going to be doing other stuff. In the wake of mass layoffs last week, IDW Media Holdings announced new promotions and new hires at IDW Publishing, including confirmation that Mark Doyle and Tara McRillis have been named co-publishers, while Jamie S. Rich has become the company's editor-in-chief. There's only 2 names worth mentioning in there that are actually noteworthy: Mark Doyle and Jamie S. Rich. Mark Doyle was the original Batman editor when Tom King was the writer there. He was also, I believe, editing for Scott Snyder when he was doing Batman. So he actually has a pretty good track record. And he does have some good contacts within the industry that he made when he worked over at DC Comics. And for the most part, as far as I know, and what I've been told behind the scenes, Mark Doyle has a very good reputation within comic books. Jamie S. Rich was the guy that took over from Mark Doyle once Tom King fired him from being the Batman editor and was like his hand-picked replacement. Jamie S. Rich was the guy editing for Tom King when the wedding issue for the Batman series came out, you know, Batman 50. Dropped the ball on that one. He was also the editor during Batman Nightmares, one of the worst story arcs in the history of the world. He was also Tom King's editor on Heroes in Crisis. So if it was up to me to put somebody in charge as the new group editor of licensed comic books, even if the title of the job isn't as good as like co-publisher or editor-in-chief, I would have put Mark Doyle on that one because he has better contacts and he actually knows how to edit a comic book that's successful. I certainly wouldn't have put Heather Antos there, but even Jamie S. Rich, the editor behind Heroes in Crisis, is way more qualified for a position like that than like a Heather Antos. But I imagine, you know, the rates are pretty cheap. Her salary is probably like $40,000 a year. For a position like that, you would expect it to be more like $90,000 a year. So you're literally paying pennies on the dollar for the position and the responsibility involved with that. And let's face it, without licensed comics actually leading the way for IDW, they're dead anyway. In fact, they were dead before that because their entertainment division basically killed the entire thing anyway. So if you're going to go down, I say, fuck it. Go out in a blaze of glory, promote Heather Antos to group editor, and see what happens. I feel bad for Sonic fans, but don't worry. That license won't be at IDW probably by the end of 2023. The shit's going to go out of business. TNT, Sonic, they'll probably go over to Boom or someplace cool like that. Perhaps like maybe a Marvel would pick up a TMNT. Maybe that's a big enough franchise. But outside of that, I would say Boom is the way to go. Or maybe even a Dark Horse or something like that. Comic book publishers that have been out there and have been proven that they can actually do this stuff and not hire and promote incompetent fools like a Heather Antos. Where does she go after IDW folds and basically doesn't exist anymore? I don't know. Hopefully Black Flag or Black Mask or Humanoid or something stupid like that. Hopefully not a Dark Horse. Hopefully not a Boom Studios, but that shit could happen. And if you do see your favorite publisher hire Heather Antos for like a senior editor position, do know that they will go under and they will be out of business within 24 months. That's how it goes with Heather Antos. She destroyed Valiant. Now she's destroyed IDW. Obviously, it wasn't all of her fault, but she was there for both of those times. And Heather Antos is also a complete dickhead, basically to fans. She actually hates the fans. She does not hold back on that, and she absolutely reeks of entitlement. I talked to my good friend Aaron Sparrow about Heather Antos and her entitlement issues. This was a great conversation. If you want to learn more about Heather, maybe this is your first time hearing her name, definitely check this video out. There's also a link in the video description.